Hi everyone, so I'm back again with another video for you. This time I'm going to do something a little bit more tropical. I'm not quite sure where the flower's from. I believe it's one that grows commonly in South Africa, and it's called white ginger. So I'm going to get on with this. I'm going to show you what cutters I'm going to use to do it, because I don't have a cutter for this flower, and we'll start off with that first. Right, so the cutters I'm going to use, I've got two cutters here. I've got a heart cutter, and this cutter here is a side petal from Phalaenopsis orchid. If you haven't got that, if you've got the smallest cutters in the lily cutters, the wide petal cutter, you could use that for this flower, or anything that's sort of like this type of shape. Some of the petals we're doing freehand without any cutters, because there isn't a cutter for those particular types of petals. So I'll get on with it first of all. So I'm going to get my paste out now. And I'm just going to use white paste for this. And before I start off, I've actually made a couple of the flowers up. So I'm going to show you one of the flowers to show you what their flower is going to look like. So this is a white ginger flower. So that's the way up it would be, the right way up, with the heart-shaped petal to the back and the smaller petals to the front. So, and it's only got one sort of like a pistil cum stamen in the centre. It's a bit of a weird flower, but you get a lot of these tropical type flowers growing abroad. I'd love to grow it in my garden, but I don't know whether it would grow in our climate, so we'll have to leave that one and see if we can't find something else that's a bit similar. So I'm going to use, I've got a 26 gauge wire here. I've got quite a few wires knocking about and I can't remember which ones are which. I think that's a 26 gauge wire. I'm using fairly thin wires for all of these. I'm only going to use two wires, a 26 gauge wire and a 28 gauge wire. So I'm going to start off with a small ball of paste like that, so about the size of a garden pea. Roll that into a sausage. Then I'm going to put my wire through the centre of that, out of the top, and then start rolling it up the wire. Now if you notice, I'm not rolling this top little bit here because I want that to be sort of quite chunky at the top. That to me looks like it's probably where the seeds are in this particular type of flower. So I'm just going to keep on rolling until I get that up past the end of the wire. I think we're just about there. Yep, that's it. Now that's probably just a little bit too long, so I'm just going to take a bit off the bottom of that. And it's already, I've already bent the wire here, so I don't need to do that because it has to be curved off. Right, so you've got the middle part of the stamen going like that, and then you've got this like a little blob on the top, which I'm going to divide into three. So I'm going to use my cutting wheel to divide that into three. Like that. Just roll that again just to make sure if I flattened it that I get that back into shape again. Right, so the next step is, if you look on the end of the centre, I'll just show you another one that I've got made up somewhere. When I find where I've put it, there it is. There's like this little blob on the end. So I'm just going to get a tiny little piece of paste and I mean tiny. In fact, oops, dropped it. I could probably cut that in half. Let me just try that against the top and see what that looks like. No, that's not so bad, that. Right, so where's it gone? It's so tiny I can't see where it's gone. It's just rolled off somewhere. I'll do another one. This is what I mean about things going wrong when I'm doing videos. For sake of keep repeating myself, if something goes wrong, I don't edit it out. But this is nothing serious. It's something that I can make again. So I'm just going to touch the end of the flower with a bit of glue like that, and then pop the top onto there, so we've got this like a little piece on the top. Now before I go any further, I've actually got a picture of this flower on my phone, so I'm going to show you why I've done that. So just get into my phone. So there we have a picture of the flower. I'll get it that way around, that's it. And you can see on the very end there the little nodule right on the very end of the centre. So just get that, set that to one side. Now we'll put that to dry. I have already got one made up that I've done earlier that's dried, so I don't need the glue anymore, because the paste that I use is quite sticky. If you're not using the paste that's sticky, like the Squire's Kitchen paste or anything like that, you need to put some glue on your wire when you're putting your wires into things. And I'm always repeating myself, but sometimes you get people that have not watched my videos before that don't know. So I'm not going to roll my paste too thin for this petal, because we're going to stretch this to get the shape that I want for this particular flower. So I'm going to use my trusty rolling pin. If you haven't got one of these, use the groove side of your board that you use for doing your leaves, if you're doing it that way. But I use this because I can cut a load of pieces out all at once. Get your heart shaped cutter with your ridge up the centre, cut that out. Just pop that paste to one side. Then I'm going to get a 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to put that up the centre like that. So once that's onto the wire, I'm going to use a cell stick. This is next to the smallest one. The small one's a little bit small for this. Where is it? I've got one here somewhere. When I find where I've put it, can't find it. It's more like a cocktail stick is the other one, but this one's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out to the side to widen it a little bit on either side like that. I'm just going to turn it over because I want it on the front. So I'm just going to stretch the rounded parts of the heart up like that to get the shape that I want. Just get that off my board. I've put that on my hand so you can see how I've stretched that. Then turn it round, and I've just found the little bit of paste that I thought I'd lost. It was stuck to my finger. There we are. So to vein it, the veining on it looks a bit like a rose petal, but I'm going to use my silk veining tool for this. So start from the centre and roll out in a fan motion like that. By the time I finish with it, it won't be that obvious, it'll be quite fine anyway, but if you want to use a rose petal veiner to vein it, you can do. And then start from the centre, and I'm just going to go around the edge, and I'm going to frill it round the edge. Now the reason I'm frilling it round the edge like this, and make sure you're going in the same direction as the veining you've just done, is so that I can curl the petal back. If you thin the edges like this, it makes it a lot easier. If you haven't got one of these, you could just go around the edge with your dog bone tool or your ball tool, whatever you're using for thinning the edges of your petals. So what I need to do now is I want to round that at the bottom so that the flower fits together, and then these two parts here want to curve back, so they can go onto my foam pad and they can be put to dry. Oops, just move that out of the way. So I've just put those on there like that, whoops, like that, in the centre, and let the two curves curve back. I've already got one that's dry there. Right, so the next part of the flower is the other two petals, and these petals are these two petals here, which form the legs. So that's the head and this is the legs, so I'm calling them legs anyway. You can call them whatever you want to call them. Now I'm going to roll the paste thinner this time because I don't need this to be thick, because we're not going to stretch these petals, so you can go thinner with this. I'm only doing a long piece like this because I only want two petals out for this particular flower. You've got 6 petals altogether, but you've got 3 different kinds of petals in the flower. Right, and now I just want to groove up the centre. I don't need to go all the way up because I've only got 2 petals to cut out, so that should be enough there for what I need. So I'm going to get that petal now, and I'm going to cut 2 of those out. Make sure that your ridge goes up the centre. There we are, like that. Take the excess paste away. Just pull that a bit out of shape there. So I want some more wire. I've run out of pieces cut out, so I'm just going to I want a 26 gauge wire. That's that one. We're using white wires for all of these. I'm just going to get a 28 gauge wire out at the same time because I'll need that for the other 3 petals, so I'll just pop that over there. Unlike some people in a lot of the books and some of the videos that you can see, a lot of people use the wires too long, and then they're cutting bits off and wasting wires and that. I don't like to waste. That's the way I was brought up, so I'd rather cut the wires shorter if I don't need them longer. So I'm cutting this into 4, and I'll do the same with the 28 gauge wire when we come on to that. So I only need 2 of those wires. So again, between your finger and your first finger and your thumb, twist your wire into the space like that, as far up as you can. I've got it up to about there. I'm just going to move my camera up a little bit because sometimes I have a habit of going out of shot, and I have been criticised for that. So if you're watching, I do take notice of comments that are made. Right, so that's those 2 petals there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn those over, and I'm going to vein them the same as the other. Now normally I wouldn't thin round the edges after I've veined it, but for this particular flower, because I'm going to shape the petals in a certain way, I find it easier to do the veining first and then do the edges. So I'm just going to, again in a fan motion. This is not botanically correct, but to all intents and purposes, anybody looking at your flower, if you do it this way, they're not going to tell the difference, because unless they know the flower very well, they're probably not going to notice. Right, so we put those onto the pad. Just Move those out of the way. And then with my ball tool, with the smaller end of the medium ball tool, I'm just going to thin the edges, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to frill them because I want them to curve inwards when I've done them, so that's why I'm doing this. You find it's a lot easier to shape your petals if you get plenty of movement into the end of them to start off with. So what we're going to do with those is we're going to curve it round at the bottom and then bring it up like that. So that's the sort of shape we want. So that's going to go onto my foam again. So again, bring that up like that. Whenever you're doing petals to go around anything, whether it's a lily or anything that's going to go round the centre, always make sure you curve the bottom part of your petal in like that, because they won't fit if you do. You find that they're harder to put together once they're dried. If you're able to put them together while they're soft, then it doesn't matter because you can shape it like that. But not everybody can do that. Sometimes they find the petals come off the wires, so I'm showing it the way that most people probably would do until you get used to it. Right, so we'll put those into my foam. You've all seen the foam before, so you know what I'm doing. So just get it so they're cupped up. So when they're dried, they look like these here. Excuse that bit of pink on the edge. I managed to catch a bit of colour when I was rolling my paste out. It got on one of my rollers, so but I'm going to dust over that anyway, so that will probably partly disappear. It's a hybrid, that's what we're calling it. Right, now then, the other petals that we're going to do are done in a similar way to something that I did in one of my earlier videos, where to shape your petals you roll your paste onto the wire and then flatten it that way, because we're not using any cutters for this. But the back petals, which are actually underneath the flower, I don't know whether you can see it on the picture. I'll just go back to the picture again. You can probably just see one of them there coming down here. You can't see the others because they're curved back, but there are 3 of these narrow petals on, because I've looked at this flower at all different angles and pictures that I found on the internet. So if you just search white ginger flower, then you'll get pictures coming up with these on. So what I'm going to do that is small ball of paste like that, about the size of a garden pea. Roll it into a sausage, then get your 28 gauge wire, and like we did with the centre of the flower, put the wire through so it comes out of the top, and then roll it on your hands so that the paste comes all the way up. This time you're rolling it all the way down the same. So it wants to be probably about 2 inches long. I'm not quite sure how big these flowers are. With not having been able to see the real flower, I'm sort of using a little bit of guesswork here, because I'm only going by a picture, and you can't always tell by a picture how big it is, particularly if you're looking at a close-up of something. So if anybody that's watching in another country where it grows, if you want to get in touch with me, if you can see where the flower is and let me know how I've done with it, then I've been most grateful for that. Try and get all your petals the same size. That one's going to be a bit longer, so I'm going to take some off of that, about that much. Take that off the bottom. Roll that onto the bottom there. Yeah, so that's the same. Just do one more. Probably got my ball of paste a little bit big there. Probably get somebody shouting at the screen, "That's a different size, you got it too big." It doesn't matter, you can alter it. This is what I like about doing sugar flowers. You can play around with them as well, and sometimes we can use artistic license when we're doing things. I had somebody got in touch with me the other day wanting a wedding cake with blue roses on it. I've only ever done one with blue roses on before, and I thought it looked really cold. Wouldn't be my choice, plus the fact there isn't actually a blue rose that colour anyway, so that's what I mean about using artistic license. Sometimes if you're following a colour scheme, that's about right, is that? So we'll just get rid of that wire out of the way. And these here, I don't know what size they are, so we'll get to those. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get any veiner. You could use this. This is a veiner from a Phalaenopsis orchid side petal. You could use that to vein if you wanted, but you really need one a bit wider to do the heart-shaped one, so that would be a bit more difficult. That's why I haven't used it. Give a good press like that, so it flattens out the petal like that. So again, on there, with that, just move that out of the way. They're not going to be all identical, but like I keep telling people, nothing is perfect in nature. Things tend to vary quite a bit. It grows how it grows, and that's it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to do any veining on these. I'm just going to run up the side and curve the sides up. Like that. And then curve it back, and then just bring it back up again. So it's not flat. The petals do look quite flat, but if you, with a lot of things, if you do them flat in sugar, they don't look like they look dead. So just pop that to one side to dry. If you want, you can do your curved bit first, and the curve back away from the flower underneath. Curve it up like that. And the last one, curve it back and curve it up. I think that needs a bit more flattening. That's a little bit narrower than the other ones. That's a bit better. Curve it back. Like that. And put those to one side to dry. Now, the flowers in the natural state grow in a cluster of quite a lot of flowers. I've only actually done 3 because I've got one that I've got left to colour to put together, and so I've only done 3 of them. But usually there are quite a lot of flowers. I couldn't tell you how many there are. They grow on a really thick stem with sort of like sheaths of leaves coming up the stem of the plant, with the flowers coming out of the edge in sort of like a spray. That's so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain about that when I put the flowers together. Now I could have done the back with sugar paste, but I found that with flower paste, but I found that a bit difficult, so I decided not to. So what I'm doing is I'm using white tape to put this flower together, to mimic the back part of the flower. On the picture that I've taken there, I can't show you that because I've taken a close-up of it rather than the whole lot of flowers together. I should have taken another picture to show you, but that doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting these together now. So if I get all my dried pieces, those 2, oops, and we've got 3 of those, and we should have one of these. That's dry. Right, so those are all the different parts of the flower. So I'm just going to pop those to one side, and I'm going to bring over my kitchen roll for dusting, and I'm going to use 2 colours here to do this flower, because there's no colour on it apart from it being a white flower. But because it's a white flower, I'm using a white lustre dust, because if I just leave it white then it won't look right. So because it'll look quite a waxy type of flower, if you use a lustre dust it gives you that sort of waxy look. The colour that I'm using here is one called Silver Snow from Edible Art. So I'm just going to dust all over with that, with the heart shaped one first of all, and then you can go on to the back and just give it a little dust over the back without putting any more on your brush. And then the two other petals, now with some petals there is a little bit of green at the base and at the tip, but there doesn't look to be any on this one. It looks to be white all over. The only bit of green on it is right at the very tip of the centre and on the heart-shaped petal at the back. Right, so that's those done, and then we've got the three narrow petals. Put it down on my paper. I know I've got it in shot then, don't I? So it's very difficult when you're your own cameraman and you're trying to do what you're demonstrating and look at the camera at the same time. I know I say this in every video, but just for anybody who hasn't watched any of my other videos, and there are quite a lot of them now. And thank you for all the people that have been watching my videos as well. I keep an eye on it. I mean, I don't know how many watches I've got all together, but it's a lot. I did once sit down and try and count them all, but then I gave up in the end. I thought, no, too much like hard work counting then. But the one thing I do need as well, people, is more people subscribing to my channel to get to where I want to be. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, it is free, it doesn't cost you anything. That I would be very grateful, and then you get to know when I'm uploading new videos. So the other colour that I'm using here is one called Tropical Lime from Edible Art. And what I'm going to do with the centrepiece, I'm just going to catch that very top piece there, the little bubble on the top with the green. And you can see that. And then the heart-shaped petal. Don't get too much powder on your brush when you're doing this. So into your powder, off your brush, so you don't have a lot of loose. And I'm just going to go up the centre like that, and then bring it out at the top, sort of a little bit of a sort of a V shape. Doesn't want to be too heavy, this. There we are, that's all we're putting on there. So I can get rid of my brush there. So I've got some half-width white Stemtex tape here, florist tape. You want the stretchy type, the one that's a bit like crepe paper. Depending on where you are, it'll depend on what make it is. The one that I use is called Stemtex. It's the only one that I found that is the right one, because some of it is quite thick and it's no good for this job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it off around the pistil. We're going to call it the pistil. Start that off, and I'm just going to tape down a little bit. The reason for that is because it's easy, your petals grip better if you've taped down a bit with it, and then start again right underneath the base there like that. Then get the wide petal, the heart-shaped one, bend the wire down and put that in at the back with the curve away from your petal. It'll probably going to move round when I'm, oh no, in the same put, flipping heck, it's behaving itself. That makes a change. I'm just going to tape down with that, and then I'm just going to pull that down to the wire. Make sure you get it right in so it doesn't move about. Now it has moved a little bit, so just bring that round so that your petal is facing the back and the pistil is curving towards the front. Start your tape off again under there, and then we'll put in the 2 wide petals. So bend your wire back and pop those in like that. Bend your wire down and pop that in. Then again, I like to tape down in between to make sure that everything stays put. Pull them down, make sure they're tight in, and tape down. You can move your petals about once you've got them in, because once it's taped then you can play with them like that. So you've got that sort of a triangle shape. Right, so start your tape off again underneath the petals. I'm just going to pull these up again a bit while I get these in. Start your tape off, and then these little thin petals go in between there, underneath there, like that. They sort of curve down. When you look at it, depends on how you're taking a picture of this, because it's very difficult for a photographer to show these petals because of the fact that they're underneath the other petals, so they're not a particularly obvious petal. Judging by the way the flower is put together, I would say that they're probably the ones that form the bud, but I couldn't see any buds on the videos that I found, so I can't show you what the buds look like. But you can always look it up. If you can find a picture with the buds, I'm sure you can manage with that, because you've watched me do buds before. Right, so I'm just taped down with that, right the way down to the bottom, and then you can adjust where your petals are. So that goes to the back, that comes in round there, like that. So they're going between those petals. That wants to come this way. Right, so what you need to do then is, once you've got it all taped together, you need to give the a curve on the back of the wire like that, so that the flower is leaning forwards like that, because the way that they go together in a group with the flowers leaning out from the centre. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a go at doing the leaf pattern. I haven't done this before, so this is the first time, so please bear with me with this. I'm just going to move that out of the way. And again, I'm going to go back to my tape, and I'm going to tape these together into a group, because I'm going to have to attach, in fact I'm going to get a piece of 20 gauge wire now to tape these onto. It doesn't matter what colour that is. Doesn't matter that it's green, because I'm going to tape over that. So I'm going to use 1/3 of a wire for this. Where's my scissors? Oh, there they are. Don't forget, people, these are florist wires. They're not scissors. They're not normal scissors, so I can use them for this job, because they're meant for cutting thick stems. Turn it over, it might help. So these florist scissors have a piece in the middle there that helps to cut through thick stems on flowers, and in my case wires. I've had these a lot of years, so they do stay sharp after a while, but probably won't be any good for anything else. Right, so to put it together I'm going to use some Nile green tape. That's the light green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the tape off at the top of my wire here. The wire won't be seen because when I put these leaves on they're going to be covered up. So I'll start by putting one of these flowers in so it's curved out like that. And the advantage we're not using paste here to cover the wires is that if I want to alter them it's a lot easier, because if you use paste and it's dried then you're not going to be able to alter the shape of the flowers once you've taped it all together, because your paste will have set then. So I'm just going to pop these together like this. I'm probably going to alter these, I think, once I've got them in. By the looks of it I'm going to curve them a little bit more out, and then I'm just going to tape down with this. I'm just going to be careful because some of the petals are in the way, so you don't want to break those off once you've taped them all on. Once you've made all your petals and that, all your hard work needs to stay put. And then I'm just going to tape down to the bottom. Not that I need to really. Right, so let's have a look. Bring that out a little bit more. Like that. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to pop that to one side for now. And I'm going to get some green paste out, or colour some paste green. I think I'll have to colour it. I'm sure you know how to colour paste, but I didn't get any ready. So another tip here as well, I don't know whether I've covered this before or not. If you're going to use something like a strong colour like that, get some white fat on your hands first before you start colouring it, because then it's a lot easier to get the colour off your hands. So I'm just going to pop that into the paste. And knead that through. Whoops. Try not to knock anything over while you're doing it. That's twice I've done that. Oh. I watch a lot of videos of other people and everything seems to go right all the time. I'm sure they must cut off and do things again if it doesn't go right. But I'm winging it here with this. The leaves on this flower sort of grow from the base, a bit like some of the orchids, and they are very big leaves. So if you were doing this in sugar, you wouldn't actually include the leaves in with it, for the simple reason that they just wouldn't look right on a cake. They'd be oversized and a bit awkward. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my top back on that. The colour that I've used for this is the green that I use all the time. There's two that I have, either Christmas green from Colour Flare, not the Holly and Ivy from Sugar Flakes, too blue is that. The Christmas green, which is one of the extra strength ones, or Holly and Ivy from Squire's Kitchen. I don't know about other makes, but you only need one green to colour your paste, because you're going to dust it with whatever colour you want it to be anyway. So what's the point in having loads of different greens when it's a lot cheaper to buy your powders than it is to buy the paste colours? So I'm just going to roll some of this out now. My hands are greasy, so I'm just going to rub some of that grease on there before I start cutting these out. Now I'm going to cut these out freehand, just using a cutting wheel. So for you people that haven't got loads of cutters and things like that, this is a good way of doing it. I'm not going to use any wires in this because they're going to be attached directly onto the flower, because they grow in sort of like sheaves coming down the stem. I'm just going to do a few, I'm not going to do loads of them. I'm not going to do a massive stem. Otherwise you'll be boring you all to death and you'll be yawning, and I know I would be if it was me. I can't do with boring demonstrations. This is why I only ever do, most of the time, do one of each petal. I've done all of them on this one, but generally it's because it just takes too long watching people cutting the same thing out over and over again, whereas you can just cut one out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out some leaf shapes, making it a little bit wider at the bottom. I'm going to do some smaller ones as well for the top bit. I'm going to have to cut all these out for the simple reason that I've not done this before, and because this is going directly onto the wire, they need to be soft when they go on, so it's not anything that I can dry ready. Don't matter about them not being all exactly the same shape. A bit of variation makes it look more realistic, so don't be frightened of using a bit of artistic license, as we keep saying. There we are. Now I can't see what the vein's like on these, so I'm not 100% sure on that, so I couldn't get a close enough look at the leaves to be able to tell, and with it not being something that I can, because like if it was an unusual flower that I've got in my garden, I'd go to the garden centre and have a look at it, but it's not the sort of plant that would grow in our climate here in the UK, so maybe down south they might be able to grow them, but up here would probably practically be impossible because of the frosts that we get up here. So if you did get it, it probably lasts a year in your garden, and it looks like it's too big a plant to grow indoors. So there we are. So what I'm going to do is, if I can find where I've put it, whoops, I'm going to use some corn husk if I can find any. I've got some somewhere, it's knowing where I've put it. Just bear with me a sec. I'm just going to switch the camera off until I find it, so you're not waiting for me. Right, I'm back. So I couldn't find the corn husk, but what I have got here is an Amaryllis veiner, which has got the veins going downwards like this. This comes in handy for a lot of things. If you can get hold of one of these, you could find it quite useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to vein in that, but first of all what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin my edges before we do that. So we'll just get those onto my pad. I'd forgotten I had that veiner, but when I was going to classes years ago, I did suggest to our instructor about that. I showed her it and she said, oh yeah, that'll come in handy for a lot of different things. So if you get anything with veins going down, particularly some of the flowers and that comes in handy for quite a lot of those if you haven't got a veiner. Right, so just thin the edges just to take that cut edge off. What I might do is, because I put these pictures of these flowers on the on different pages on Facebook, I might do some more of these to finish it off after I've done the video, rather than you sat watching me make loads of them. Or the other thing is, I could cut the video off and come back with some more pieces cut out. We'll see how we get on putting these on first, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do. And then you might just see it finished. It does appear to have quite a thick stem on it, so this isn't going to be as thick as the real one would be. But there again, there's a lot of flowers that have got quite fleshy stems, aren't they? Like a lot of the spring flowers, like daffodils and tulips and things like that. Right, so pop those to one side and get my verner. So pop that into there. Pop the verner on it. Give it a good press. It's only got some fine veining in it. It just makes all the difference if you've got some kind of veining in it. As I say, on the pictures I couldn't see close up what the veining was like on the plant. So sometimes you find that there's certain veiners that you can have in your box that come in handy for different things. Particularly a rose leaf veiner I use for quite a lot of things. So always useful, because most people start off with roses, that if you've got the cutters and the veiners you can do a lot of different things with the ones that you've got in your box, without having to spend a lot of money on lots of others. I mean, if you're going to do competitions, then yes, you do need to buy the veiners, because then they need to be botanically correct. And I have got drawers full of cutters and veiners, some that I've never used as yet, but hopefully doing this YouTube channel, eventually I will manage to get through most of them, with a bit of luck. Right, so that's those done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and attach them to my flower. I think I'll bring this down here. I've got my wooden block here that I can stand it in while we're doing this. So I just pop that in there. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the smallest ones. Now you're gluing on the front of these. The back is going to be showing because obviously I'll just do these three small ones first of all. I'm only leaving a little bit at the top that I haven't veined, because we want a little bit to stand off. We don't want it all flat to the wire. So if I start by getting one of those bracts, and that wants to go sort of there just underneath the flowers like that, and I'll just wrap that round. Doesn't matter where you start with this. You get one side round and then bring the other side across it there like that. Bit like when you're doing a calla lily, but we want it up a little bit higher than that. If you can see that, where I've put that on. And then I'm going to go to the other side and put another one on the other side. Like that. And wrap that round. Doesn't matter about the bottom being untidy, because that's going to be covered over with any that you put round down below that. I'm just going to push those up and curve those back a bit up to there. That's it. So that they're up to where the white flower starts coming out, and just give them a little bit of a curve back. when I sand it up, those will probably drop back on their own anyway. So then if we get another one, I'm just going to put that a little bit further down, like that. You can see that. See where I've put that. I'm not going to be able to dust this while it's still soft, so what I might do is stop the video and then come back when it's had time to dry and finish the video off then, so you get the colouring bit as well. So we'll get another one that's a bit bigger, and that one that's slightly smaller than that. Just put that back into my block there. I'm sort of just leaving probably about a quarter of it at the top that I haven't glued. So I'm going to get the smaller one out of those two and bring that a bit further down. Oops. It's a bit difficult with it being a thin wire because they tend to slide around a bit, so just take your time with things like this. Wrap that round like that and over. I'm just going to just mould it in there. It's not going to be seen, isn't that bit, so curve that out a little bit, curve that out a little bit. And then we're going with that one down here. Oh, I might not need any more at this rate. And wrap that round. I'm just going to lay that down so I can do this a bit easier if you've got two hands at it. Then wrap that round. If you're doing this at home, it might be a good idea to let some of it dry before you do some more on it, because then it doesn't move around so much. As I'm doing it all soft, it's moving a little bit more than I want it to. And then we'll do the big one. As I say, in reality it would have more flowers at the top, so if you want to put more flowers on yours, then that's fine. Just turn that over so I can get this up round there. So that's how the leaves go down the stem on this particular type of flower, and then these bits curve back. Pick the hair up somewhere there. Curve those back a little bit away from the stem, and then leave that to dry like that, and then you can colour it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to leave that to dry a bit and then I'll come back to it. Well, I'm back. I've let the last part that I put on the flower dry a little bit. It's not fully dry yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to colour it. But I wanted to let it dry a little bit before I did that. So I'm going to use two colours here. I'm going to use the tropical lime that I used for the centre of the petals at the back there, And I've also got another colour that I'm going to use here because it's quite an unusual colour. So I'm using Eucalyptus Nile from Edible Art. I haven't used this colour before in any of my videos, which is quite a sort of a dull grey greeny colour. There are actually two eucalyptus in this range. There's one that's more grey than this one, which I would use if I was doing something like carnations or anything like that that have got that sort of colour, and obviously eucalyptus leaves, and eucalyptus leaves do come in this colour as well as the other colour. This is one of the reasons why I like Edible Art, because we've got so many different variations of colours. So I'm going to start off by doing down the edge of these leaves. Now the main leaves, the big ones that I mentioned earlier on, are also very much like this, probably more so, but they start off with a lighter colour on the very edge and then go to this eucalyptusy colour in the centre. So I'm just going to go around all of these bits here with the lime green. Just doing the edge like you would with a rose or anything that you want to do colour on the edge of it. I don't know whether you can see this on camera or not, because I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing here and leave it so you can see it as well. I'm just going to turn that over now, turn that round here, but bring it more down here. I'm just trying not to get the green on the stems because they want to stay white. Right, let's just check around. I think I've done them all. Yes, I have. Right, so I'm going to get some of this eucalyptus now. And then I'm going to start from the top and do down the middle part. Just leaving the just blowing the excess off where it's gone on to where I don't want it. Thing is, if you've gone too far in with the light colour, you can always go over with this colour. If you start with your lightest colour first, or whichever colour you're going to do on the edge. Right, so that's all that done. So there we are. So that's white ginger from South Africa. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed doing something a little bit different to what I usually do, something a bit more tropical. And like I say, you know, if you've got any ideas about anything that you'd like to see me do, then please leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free to subscribe. And look forward to seeing you all in the next video. So take care and stay safe.